I think art and the idea of intellectual property is a complicated one. As time goes on and more people choose to find different ways to express themselves artistically, it's almost impossible to find things that are truly and wholly, completely original content. So in the end, when we have to make decisions about who gets credit for things, who gets to claim a creative document, a creative piece of art, it gets complicated, and the law also sees it as being complicated. It's why, as time goes on, it's why there's duration limits on copyrights, and eventually things enter the public domain and get to become something that everyone has. And I think in the end, that's kind of what it comes down to.
Yeah, originality is definitely an interesting topic. I think it's something a lot of people strive for. And I think it's subjective to discuss whether or not that's actually a thing or not. Originality, geez, you could kind of almost go back and talk about Shakespeare being the originator of almost everything that we know as stories nowadays. Maybe not the structure of how the story was told, but the idea of revenge, the idea of love, the idea of all these different things he's basically brought to the table for many. And I'm sure that we could probably trace it back even earlier than him. So when you watch a lot of movies, most of the subjects and most of the themes that happen pretty much come directly from Shakespeare and others. So I don't know if that's necessarily the case, but that doesn't mean that you couldn't take the idea of a story and change the setting, change the characters, change the situation. As an example, I use this one all the time to explain that idea, is that Avatar came out. And Avatar was huge. Avatar was amazing for a long time, for 6-8 months. It was a top movie. Everybody loved it. Amazing effects. But it gained so much popularity, like Batman says, you are the hero long enough to see yourself eventually become the villain.
Ready to die, hero. Or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
And so everybody loved Avatar until eventually it just reached a certain amount of fame. Everybody talked a bunch of junk about it. And then it just became like a joke. But Avatar was an amazing movie. People started comparing it to an animated movie called Fern Gully. And other people compared it to Dances with Wolves. You have a character who has seemingly turned his back on his own people to end up helping out another oppressed people. Have we seen it before? Yeah, we saw it in those movies. But have we seen it on that planet with blue aliens before? No. And I'm sure we could literally tell that tale hundreds of more times in hundreds of different settings. With the amount of people that are in the world, it's only a matter of time before an idea is thought of by somebody else and brought to light. One of the things I've always wanted to do was create a series that was mostly historical, but historical fiction, of the unification of the Hawaiian Islands. I love Hawaii. I love Polynesian art. I love everything about it. And I've wanted to bring the unification of those islands together to show that. I sat on it for too long. And sure enough, they're actually in the process right now of shooting a movie about King Kamehameha and the unification of the Hawaiian Islands under one rule. I've had that idea for the longest time, and it took too long to get it going, and somebody else beat me to the punch. So that's a bit of a bummer, but that's the thing, is you gotta get busy. You gotta get busy doing it, or somebody else is gonna catch you before you can. I have a project that I'm working on now, and honestly, I need to get it done sooner than later, because my biggest fear is, because I put so much of my heart and soul into this project already, is that maybe one day it's gone. And not because I told anybody about it, but because there's no reason why anybody couldn't come up with the same idea, you know?
Think about a really famous or historical piece of writing or storytelling, like Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice, largely considered one of the best books ever written. It comes out centuries ago. And to date, the ideas behind Pride and Prejudice, the basic storyline, has inspired literally dozens of other books and other films. And sometimes they take credit for it. But in all honesty, because the trope of the dynamics between the main characters has become such a trope in writing, that half the time people don't even recognize that Pride and Prejudice is what they're referencing when they borrow the storyline. Like, seriously, look it up. Look up how many films openly acknowledge citing Jane Austen's work as an influence over the storyline and then take liberties with it. And then when you understand what the storyline is, you can see that that storyline has influenced and become part of so many other different stories that don't even go so far as to name their film something like Bride and Prejudice or Pride and Prejudice. It goes so far beyond that. So it's tricky when you think about influence in art. I do think it's important for artists to educate themselves on where the art that they love comes from. I mean, everyone has influences and things that help them to get to where they are today. Not being aware of that can cause you problems. So I think what's really important as an artist is, again, educating yourself, keeping a broad and open sense of your tastes and your aesthetics and where they come from, but even more importantly, educating yourself on how copyright and intellectual property law works in the country that you're in and in the countries you plan to distribute your art within, so you don't get yourself in trouble either.